Next tonight, building projects rarely run to budget, but what about going over by £600 million? Well, that's the amount the rail minister says is needed to fund the cost of finishing Crossrail. The line, which will run from East to West London, is due to open fully in December. The bill already stands at £14.8 billion. Joe Johnson says the extra cash is critical. Here's our political correspondent, Simon Harris.
Less than 6 months to go, Crossrail is still a building site. The project is turning out to be far more complicated than anyone expected and costing far more than anyone thought. The government revealed today rising construction costs are pushing up the price by more than £500 million.
First of all, there was an explosion earlier in the year, which they kept quiet, and it only came out at a board meeting. And today's announcement, we say rumours we've heard for a long time, but today's announcement came out on the final day in a parliamentary question. We need some more transparency around this.
Major rail projects have an unhappy history of going over budget, and Crossrail is no exception. It was supposed to cost £14.8 billion. That's now expected to rise to £15.4 billion, an increase of £600 million. In other parts of the country, the news was met with frustration.
It just seems that more and more money can always be found for London on top of what's been allocated. And that's hard for us to swallow when we're still waiting for promises made by the government as part of the Northern Powerhouse 4 years ago.
One of the most complex challenges involves making sure the new trains obey different signalling systems on different parts of the track. Everything needs to be tested so problems can be ironed out. But the testing schedule in the new tunnels was held up at the start of the year after 2 electrical transformers blew up at a substation in East London. The big question now is, will Crossrail be ready for its expected royal opening as the Elizabeth line in December? Transport for London, which will run the trains, says it's sticking to its timetable. But any delay to this flagship project would be deeply embarrassing. Tonight, Crossrail described the increased cost of the scheme as disappointing. Simon Harris, ITV News, Farringdon.
Londoners take note. The capital's fire brigade said today they are fed up of politely asking people to take care as temperatures rise, with a clear warning about London's parks and grasslands, that one act of stupidity can lead to the whole lot going up in minutes. There have already been 43 large grass fires here so far this year, compared to 7 in the whole of 2017. So, smokers, those barbecuing and anyone drinking out of glass bottles, beware. Here's Simon Harris on the accidental fire starters.
It could be a scene from the Australian outback, but these are the dark scars of a British summer. Wanstead Flats in East London has seen a number of large fires in recent weeks. Across London there have been more than 40, and fire chiefs are increasingly worried some are being started deliberately.
If that's the case, the ramifications of a very, very small fire to begin with can turn out to be 100 hectares and putting people at risk. Fires like this travel very, very quickly. In some cases, quicker than you could run.
The brigade says careless and reckless behaviour is putting lives at risk. Discarded bottles and barbecues, even cigarette butts, are causing alarm. These are the new hot weather rules for people using Hampstead Heath. Like everywhere else, the grass here is brittle and dehydrated. And this is a huge suburban open space surrounded by homes. The heatwave has made the Heath a magnet for sun seekers. A fire here doesn't bear thinking about.
I love Hampstead Heath. I love it all year round. Winter, summer, autumn, it's different each season.
Today, as the mercury climbed, Londoners and visitors from beyond were making the most of this sun-baked oasis.
Hampstead Heath Pond's an absolute godsend. If it weren't for this space here where dogs can swim, I don't know how my dog would survive this heat.
Some activities in these temperatures take a certain amount of dedication or possibly madness. What on earth are you thinking?
I don't know. I'm asking myself that question right now. Yeah, no, it's quite hot to run. But, I mean, the Heath is amazing, isn't it? So it's nice to be out here.
After weeks without rain, the Heath is literally cracking up. That didn't put off this group of walkers from Surrey who knew what to expect and what to do.
We're cutting short the walk, so when we get to Kenwood, so as, you know, to obey the rules that were given on the TV.
Which are?
Yeah, well, wear a hat and don't walk between 11 and 3, but it is.
It's 11:45.
Yes.
Hampstead Heath on a hot sunny day isn't to everyone's taste, but to some it's irresistible. How much of the day are you going to spend here?
Probably a couple of hours, kind of get a bit of a tan. You know, I've got some white Irish pasty skin, so I need to top it up.
With no immediate end in sight to the sweltering weather, tens of thousands of Londoners will head for hotspots like this in the coming days. But the warning about what can happen was stark. As one senior fire officer put it, we're fed up of politely asking people to take care. Simon Harris, ITV News, Wanstead.
Good evening from Primrose Hill, with a view over a city that's been struggling in the heat today as we reached our hottest mark, over 35 degrees. When the heat wave started, none of us believed that it could last so long. But weeks later, the grass here is brown and parched, just like parks across the capital in the southeast. Fans are selling out in shops all over town. Commuters are battling through sweltering conditions. And hospitals say they're as busy as winter as people struggle to cope. According to one report out today, this weather could become our new normal. We'll talk more about that in just a moment. But first, here's Simon Harris on a baking day for London.
There are many ways to describe tube travel, but one word seemed on everyone's lips today.
Unbearable. Unbearable. It is unbearable.
This was the Central Line in the middle of the afternoon, warming up nicely ahead of the rush hour. On open-air sections of the line, the trains are baked by the sun. Underground, they're cooked even more by the latent heat of the tunnels. And in the carriages, every passenger is a human radiator. No wonder it feels like a furnace.
It feels like you can hardly breathe at all, to be quite honest. I'm hoping that I get off safely, to be honest, without flaking out.
It's horrendous. Love paying to travel on this.
It's hard to breathe, and I actually thought, I wonder if I'd be one of those people that passed out, and I never passed out.
The minute you come into the carriage, you're met by a blast of hot air. It's even hotter in the train than it is on the platform.
The heatwave is now having an impact on London's hospitals. This is King's in Camberwell, where they've seen a big increase in patients with asthma, breathing difficulties and illnesses brought on by the heat.
This year it's not stopped. We're as busy now as we were in winter. So the hospital is struggling. It's trying its hardest to keep beds free for our patients, but we're really noticing it this year.
Experts studying London's air quality predicted high levels of pollution because the sun's rays hitting exhaust fumes create ozone.
That irritates the lung linings when we breathe it in. So that means that people who have pre-existing respiratory conditions, asthma, COPD, they're possibly going to feel some effects today.
At bus stops across London, the pollution alert was broadcast alongside the live timetable, along with a political message from the mayor added for good measure. In Green Park, the first hint of warm weather usually attracts hordes of lunchtime sunbathers. But today, only a handful seemed willing to expose themselves on the parched grass as the temperature hit a new high.
Hot, really hot, but it's nice.
I think it's just make the most of it because you don't know how long it's going to last.
Are you worried about burning?
I mean, we've had sun cream on, so we've been putting sun cream on today.
Others took advantage of Green Park's canopy of trees to have their lunch break in the shade, where it was a little cooler, but not much.
It's dragging on too long, though. I think it's nice to have a few days of it and then cool and then a few days. It's too constant now. It's quite intense.
The hottest day of the year in London began with an evocative sunrise. For many commuters, it ended with a hellish journey home. Simon Harris, ITV News on the Underground.
Tonight, 2 deaths in 3 weeks on a small stretch of river, yet people are still swimming in the Jubilee River in Slough. A man in his 20s drowned on Wednesday, 3 weeks after a 17-year-old boy died there. After weeks of dry weather, there has been rainfall today, but with more high temperatures forecast, the warnings remain the same. Do not swim where it isn't safe. Simon Harris reports.
Hot weather and cool water, an irresistible but sometimes lethal combination. Today we watched as 4 men dived into the Jubilee River in Slough. Swimming is forbidden here and already 2 people have drowned during the heatwave. The latest victim, a man in his 20s who disappeared while swimming with friends on Wednesday. The danger signs are obvious enough, but anyone coming here in recent weeks would surely have seen something else. Something which should have been as clear a warning as anything of the risks of going into this water. On the riverbank are flowers, messages and pictures of a young man who drowned at the same spot just 3 weeks earlier. He was Dejan Daly, a 17-year-old from nearby Wexham. Jamie Green runs a canoe and kayak centre on the river and helped in the search for Dejan. He's frequently horrified by what he sees on the weir.
people all along the river in this sort of weather, which is great. You use the rest of the river, it's fine, but the weir is just, it's just not a safe place to be. You see people on there daily. There's families walking across it, people walking across with their toddlers. It's frightening to watch.
Michael Scaife drowned while swimming in the Jubilee River 3 years ago. His mother Sonia has campaigned for better fences. She thinks swimmers need tougher deterrents, like fines.
I'm stood here and there are people jumping in off the river despite being told that 2 people have died here in the last couple of weeks, and they're still doing it.
How does that make you feel?
I'm actually stood here shaking. It's making me feel sick in the stomach that another parent may go through what we have.
Do you know how dangerous it is? The young men in the water today were reluctant to talk to us, but appeared to know about the recent tragedies. Do you know how dangerous it is?
This is dangerous?
Yes, 2 people have drowned here. Did you know that?
Yeah, but to most people jumping here, and sometimes, in the street, sometimes people die, sometimes people die on the reef, yeah? Sorry.
You don't think you're putting your life at risk in there?
Sorry.
On a hot day in a seemingly endless heat wave, it's easy to see why water like this is so attractive. The wildlife makes it look easy, but the Jubilee River is deceptive and deadly. Simon Harris, ITV News, Slough.
Well, let's go back to Simon Harris, who is by the River Jubilee. Simon, so what is the advice tonight from the authorities there?
Well, the advice from Thames Valley Police is quite simple. Do not swim here. They point out that however tempting and tantalising it is to go into the water on a hot day, that weir behind me creates extremely dangerous currents. And while it's quite shallow on top, only ankle deep, underfoot it's just green slime. Very easy to slip, very easy to bang your head on the weir and get pulled under. Now, in the last few minutes, we've actually seen somebody wading across the shallow top of the weir. A lady who appeared to be throwing what was a tribute, a red rose we could see, into the water. I'm not sure whether she knows the latest victim or whether she's somebody who's heard about the tragedy and come along. But that's what we saw, somebody, again, taking a risk, walking in the shallows on top of the weir, which the police say is extremely dangerous. Now, this river was actually man-made, designed to save lives, not take them. It was created 18 years ago as an overflow channel to stop catastrophic floods on the Thames in and around Windsor and Maidenhead. It comes under the control of the Environment Agency, who we wanted to speak to today to ask about these 2 tragedies in the space of 3 weeks. But rather surprisingly, the Environment Agency said it was inappropriate to comment. But as we've seen this afternoon and again this evening and a little earlier when we saw some anglers on top of the weir, the tragedies and the warnings are being ignored.
All right, Simon Harris in Slough, thank you.